Welcome to Thirst Impressions. Today we're talking about truth, cognac, and consequences. I'm Spencer.
I'm Belinda.
I'm Kevin.
And I am Will.
Did you guys see that TikTok that's the lady telling the story about how she's a vet tech and the woman comes in saying there are bugs all over a dog's stomach?
No.
And she's like, Mr. TikTok knows.
Oh, their nipples?
Like, she's like trying to pull the nipples off the dog.
Oh, God. Poor thing.
Can you imagine?
She's like, no, it's a boy. She's like, ma'am, doesn't your husband have nipples?
I thought he had bugs too. I don't know.
Crawling with bugs.
Oh, we cut those off a long time ago.
Speaking of nipples, I'm thirsty. What should we drink tonight? Sorry.
What are we drinking today, Kevin?
We're having falling leaves, right?
Yeah. We decided it's in Utah here. Well, everywhere in the northern hemisphere. It's autumn.
Is it me, or did everyone just go fucking crazy about leaves this year? Because we're bored out of our minds or some shit.
I think that's it. And
okay.
I think,
it's just like, why is everyone posting pictures?
It's not bad news. It's not something anyone's going to argue about. I think there's something to that, but
it's nothing new. But anyhow,
but it has been wild. So many, and I was sick. I was sick for a couple of weeks. So I literally feel like I missed all of like the fun part of fall. Where
was someone trying to rip your nipples off?
Close. Someone was trying to like make a new hole through my dick. Not someone, some things. Yeah.
Sounds like an offline story.
Kidney stones. Yeah, kidney stones. But no, I want to do a drink that was kind of seasonal. So I found this one called Falling Leaves, which I've never had before. And Belinda, I don't believe you have either, right?
So this is a premiere.
Yeah, a premiere. It's not a drink for the faint of heart. It's pretty boozy. And it has 4 different liquors in it. So it's not super cheap either.
Before we get into the recipe, how would it stack up against the Aunt Roberta?
We're about to find out.
Well, no, I mean, there's only 4 instead of the 8 or whatever it was. But in terms of the recipe, let me pull it up here. It has, let's see, essentially 4 ounces of liquor. So, and I made it double.
I made a double.
I don't think I'll drink it all, but
I made a double too, but I measured the Hennessy wrong. And so it's like a massive.
Yeah, I know. It's like, look at that. That's all booze. Whoa.
It looks almost like a Manhattan.
I mean, it's similar in a sense, but so it starts with Calvados. We did another episode where we use this Calvados. And if you remember from that episode, this is essentially a brandy made from apples. It's a little on the spendy side. So if you don't have Calvados on hand, you could always use like an apple brandy,
French
or apple jack or something. Yeah, French. All the things are French that we're using today. So 1.5 ounces of the Calvados or some sort of apple brandy, 1.5 ounces of sweet vermouth of any kind will really work. And 1/2 ounce of dry vermouth. Ooh. So both kinds of vermouth are grape based. We have an apple based with the brandy, and then 2 grape based vermouths. And then the last thing is 1/4 ounce of Hennessy or Cognac, which is also grape based. So interestingly enough, usually most liquors that we use are pretty much grain based. Not just on the show, just most, cocktails that you would normally order in a bar are made from Cognac is grape based.
Is it essentially grape based brandy
in the Cognac region? Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's what's the word? I've lost it.
Distilled?
Fortified wine, essentially, or distilled wine. And I mean, the vermouths you can get for a pretty reasonable price, but the Calvados and Hennessy or any kind of cognac, generally speaking, are going to be a little bit on the pricier side than just vodka or something like that. So this drink prices out a little higher than maybe our normal drinks, except maybe the Aunt Roberta's, which just has so many ingredients. But I'm excited to give it a try. So I've pre-measured those measurements that I talked about, and like I said, this is a double.
And you've got
I use caution.
Oh, go ahead.
You've got it in a mixing glass, so it's not shaken, correct?
Right. There's no citrus or things like that in it. So generally, if it's pretty much a straight booze drink, you're going to stir it. And Belinda and I have fancy mixing glasses, but you can literally do it in just a glass, or do it in your shaker or whatever the case may be.
And he used a red sweet vermouth, so that's what gives the pretty red tint, where mine just looks like alcohol.
More like an old fashioned.
It does look like an old fashioned.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little ice to my mixing glass and give it a nice stir. When you stir, I've mentioned this in shows before, but it's a good idea to stir it for about 20 plus seconds. That's the standard. And the idea is they build a recipe with the idea that you're going to dilute a little bit. So, so you can stir it a little less if you want. And if it still feels strong, then stir it a little bit more. But so I'm going to go ahead and strain mine. And I've got a little lemon twist on there. And there is your fallen leaves. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm drinking coffee.
I'm drinking tea.
Also delicious.
At
Ooh,
night.
that's good.
Coffee at
That's
night.
really good.
However, so I am sick today, so I am drinking tea, but I did take some NyQuil about 40 minutes ago. So I'm gonna start. That's my intoxication.
That sounds like a special cocktail.
It kind of is, I guess.
I've got a tip for you, and it's not about NyQuil, although that does work if you're ever in a pinch. But don't do that. That's a bad
First
idea.
Impressions does not officially endorse drinking NyQuil.
No. But the tip I do have, if you ever do decide, hey, I want to mix two cocktails and have another one so I don't have to do it again later, just make sure you strain it off into, like I just strained it into a shaker, so that the ice doesn't continue to melt and dilute your drink too much. So,
okay.
And if you're by a fridge, then you can stick it in the fridge to keep it chilled.
And that was just a tip with Kevin.
Just a tip. No, it's delicious. What are your thoughts, Belinda?
The tip or the drink?
You're muted.
I love it. And it's not so boozy with all the vermouth. So it kind of lightens it up a little bit.
It's very grape forward. I mean, obviously three of the four liquors are grape based, but a lot of times when I drink, cognac or some grape based, boozy things, I don't get a lot of that grape flavor. I never am like, oh, it's like I'm drinking wine, but it's stronger. It always kind of has its own, but this is very grape forward.
Yeah, and the Calvados is so appley. I do this appley that it actually it tastes like just like kind of a lightly boozy.
And while it is a booze forward drink, obviously, the Hennessy's 80 proof, I believe, but like, even though these are fortified, they're generally, I'm sorry, I'm getting so old I can't read. Well, I guess the Calvados is 40%, so 80 proof, but your vermouths, which are half of the stuff, are probably like in the 20 to 30% alcohol percentage. So it could be a lot worse if they were all 80 proof or more things, but no, it's delicious and very desirable. So you said you're feeling sick, huh, Will?
Yeah, not good.
Lots of people feeling sick these days. We've got COVID back in full effect.
Yeah, I'm not sure if what I have is COVID. I didn't get tested today. Maybe I will tomorrow. I just felt like laying in bed all day. So
I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah.
Probably not though. You'd gotten it once before.
And you're vaccinated.
And I'm vaccinated. So yeah, no.
Sorry, I started to say that, then I was like, I shouldn't be giving out your personal information.
What else can we tell about Will? What's your blood type?
But I have also not been good at social distancing, so I will admit that. I was in Oregon a couple of weeks ago and Texas the other weekend, and
into the belly of the beast in Texas.
A lot of bars. Oh yeah. Okay, no, in Oregon, everybody was wearing masks. Like even like you're walking down like the street in public, everybody has masks on, like no questions. In Texas, yeah, not a single person.
Not at all. Yeah. Texas is like Utah County or Davis County.
Very much so.
Every time, I mean, I like being at home, whatever. But when I leave and I go out and I go to like Utah County, I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? No one cares. No one gives a fuck. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's like the pandemic doesn't exist.
Well, even the like, sometimes if I'm like, I'm going to run in somewhere and I'm not going to, it's not really crowded right now or whatever, I can socially distance or whatever, not put it on. But then people crowd up against you. Like you're standing in line and a lot of them still have like the little dots, right? Like stand this far apart, and people don't at all, really.
That was the one thing I wanted to continue after like all
I don't
COVID.
want it. Whether it's COVID or your bullshit cold or whatever, I don't want it. Like, fucking stay away.
I don't even care if you're fucking healthy. Like, stay away from me. Oh my God. You don't need to be right next to me in line. Like,
stand back.
6 feet away. Yeah.
You're like, I was in the public restroom with you and you did not wash your hands. Stay the fuck away from me. Yeah.
No, I wear masks pretty much everywhere. You can ask Kevin. True. Like, I'm always wearing a mask. And this morning I dropped my son off at school and I was like, I need to run and get, a couple of items at the grocery store. So I run into Smith's and I realized I didn't have a mask with me at all. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just stay away from people. But I'm like walking in and I felt so self-conscious. I'm like, I look like an anti-masker now. Look at me. I'm being the person I hate. What's happening?
No, I started a new job and we have a shared office space with like a bunch of other people and nobody wears masks. Not a single person have I ever seen wear a mask in a shared office space.
Where I work, at least verbally, has made a pretty good commitment or recommitment, I guess, to making people wear them. But I just work from home. I just don't care anymore. I'm like, there's no reason for me to go in and risk being around people all day. And a lot of people I work with have kids. I mean, I do too, but I only have one that's with me kind of all the time. And I do know my son wears a mask at school and has been vaccinated and whatnot. So, but like, there's just too many people that don't care. And I was reading recently on a social media post, and I don't know the person that was making this comment, but they were basically like, yeah, me and my family had it. And it was like 3 days of not feeling great, but it was fine. It was no big deal. And I'm like, I don't give a shit if that was your experience. Clearly that's not many, many, many other people's experience. And I don't give a shit if it's not going to kill me, which, by the way, it's killing plenty of people still. When I had it, I was sick as a dog for 2 to 3 weeks. Like couldn't get out of bed practically. And then I still, to this day, almost a year later, am feeling the effects of it. So like, I don't give a shit if you don't care. I think if you want to get sick, that's fine. But guess what? When you get sick, it's going to affect me and it's going to affect other people.
Yeah. I think since we've been dealing with this for so long now, almost 2 years. That's crazy.
That is wild.
I think we've just typical American culture. We have devolved back into this thinking of this individualistic thinking, because the issue around a pandemic isn't necessarily how deadly it is to like single individuals. But once you start like overrunning the hospitals, then it's like, oh, you get flu season. Okay, people with the flu, they're just gonna have to like suffer. Like the ones that like really need to go to the hospital, not just like the flu, but like other things too. You need to go to the hospital. Sorry, they'll have beds.
You're in a car accident.
Yeah. No, I had a friend who needed to go to the hospital a couple weeks ago, and they just stuffed him like in the hallway, and just like for a day. Like they didn't have time to really take care of them, and they just sat in the hallway all by themselves, like because they were just overrun with COVID patients. So like I think we really have forgotten that like a lot of this stuff is more about like our communities and less about like, oh yeah, like you only get the sniffles if you get COVID. Like, yeah, some people that is the case, but if you do need to go to the hospital because your lungs can't absorb oxygen, you're just shit out of luck. Sorry.
So I actually had to go to the hospital like 3.5 weeks ago, to the ER for the kidney stone issue I was talking about, because I didn't know what was wrong with me at the time. And fortunately, the hospital I was at, there was no problem with me getting into a bed in the ER. But the thing that I did notice is every person other than the doctor that I was working with was a UVU student. It said like UVU nursing program or whatever on their thing. In fact, my arm looks good now, but actually you can still kind of see some of it, right?
Yeah.
Right? See that bruising? My arm was just a giant bruise because I couldn't find a fucking vein for the what do you call it?
Left draw, yeah. IV,
no, for the IV, yeah. And it was just like it was black for 2 weeks because it was bruised up that much. So I think that's because there's a nursing shortage, right? Not only because the nurses are all being used for so many COVID type cases as well as the other cases, but because some people are just like, this is not for me. I don't want to die because I spend all day, every day, 12-hour shifts working with people in COVID wings. So they quit and find a different job.
Well, it's also got to be frustrating when like everybody keeps calling them heroes and they're like, okay, give us more money.
Yeah. Right. Not only that.
Like, no, we're going to clap for you.
A parade. We'll release some balloons into the air for you. No, my little brother.
Yeah.
He's a paramedic up in Idaho, and it went from like applauding, our, hometown heroes or whatever to getting threats, right?
Yeah.
Like, now medical workers are getting threats. Who the hell knows why?
And nothing makes sense anymore.
No.
So yeah, no, I actually think I think Democrats made a really big mistake. I think they should have. I think. I mean,
which mistake? Not.
Yeah, I know. I'm like
not nominating Bernie
for vaccines.
That's number one.
For vaccines specifically, they should have branded it as the Trump vaccine. They really should have.
True.
Like you call the Trump vaccine. Guess what? Liberals are going to get it anyways. They don't give a shit about what it's called. They actually care about like the science behind it. But the conservatives, if you would have just called it like the Trump vaccine, maybe they would have actually gotten it.
Yeah, I wish one of us had the scientific background and knowledge and expertise to explain the vaccine and what it does. I've listened to videos and podcasts about it. It's really amazing to see how quickly it was developed, but a lot of people have a lot of fear because we don't necessarily understand it. But it's just been interesting to see how people have been handling the whole thing. Like, I haven't done the research, sure. I don't have a PhD, so I tend to rely on my subject matter experts in my life. On the show, we all have different talents and expertise, areas of focus. If I need a certain thing, I'll go to Kevin or Belinda or Will. That's the way it works. Like, what happened to the trust that we had in those who spent the time to study, research, like be experts in their domains? What happened to that trust? It's so weird.
You're so right. Go ahead, Belinda.
No, I was just going to say, like, people say that it was created hastily, right? And I'm a skeptic when it comes to medical things. I research the heck of everything. Even when I did get my shot, I like researched like which one has the fewest side effects. Like I was so
going to
careful.
say the vaccine or the vitamins, but go ahead.
Also vitamins, but no, like what people don't understand is the technology to develop a vaccine has been perfected over a long period of time. You just have to create it with the right, virus in mind or, bacteria or whatever, right? So like they've been developing the mRNA like process for decades, and then they're able to make a vaccine in a short period of time.
See, like that's the whole reason why they have been developing this new like vaccine technology. And I say technology, but it is relatively like not that complex, but like It takes years and decades to test it and all that sort of stuff. But it really is such a miracle that they were able to develop this. And then COVID was a perfect, sounds bad, but it was like a perfect virus that worked well with the technology.
Yeah.
Like it worked well with the technology that they've been developing for other SARS viruses. And so all they had to do was just change the payload that they were using. It's incredible.
I think Kevin will appreciate this point, but when conspiracy theorists or people who are prone to believe these, let's just say, very convoluted, far-fetched explanations for why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
Imagine, Kevin, I'm going to give away your profession. Kevin manages projects.
What?
Imagine managing a global project, right?
Right.
With that many people and that many moving parts to get to some eventuality that leads us here. Like the complexity alone.
Yeah. And it's like layers of projects too, right? Because like what you're talking about,
there's no
you've got the project
way.
That's the underlying technology or processes or whatever, with all these moving parts and people around the world coming together. And then you've got the overlay of COVID itself and all the moving parts there.
So I'm saying the development of the vaccine, awesome. But I'm saying like those who believe that this is some vast conspiracy, some pandemic, like imagine organizing a project that would lead to this point.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Stupid.
A government agency too.
Right.
Oh, Kevin has a good one for this. Like, and we won't say who said this to him about doctors purposely.
And I've heard this from several people, not really directly, but there's this idea, and I don't understand where it's coming from. I don't really watch conservative talk whatever.
I read some.
But this idea that hospitals and or doctors get paid for each COVID death that they record and or COVID case. And I was like, so it was my mom. I said to her, I thought it was a crazy notion. I was like, who's going to pay the money for that? Who's benefiting?
Big casket, bro.
Big casket. The fucking big casket cartel. Jesus. Those motherfuckers. Tall, lanky, dark-eyed motherfuckers. Yeah. Lurch like. No, seriously, like who else would it be? Like it makes no sense. There's probably something that's like, well, the government's going to give funding to hospitals who are treating more people because that's the right thing to do.
I don't know when the shift happened, but I'd wager it had something to do with Trump. Not to bring everything back to him.
I mean,
but
it's fair.
His ability to treat truth as such a malleable thing and like just manipulate to the point where it's so far removed from any reality and people just lap it up.
Yeah.
I have this whole thing. I do believe that there are certain interest groups that are, maybe this is my own conspiracy. There's a reason education's underfunded. An educated population is hard to control, to manipulate when people are actually critical. I'm not saying, those who do their own research while they're taking a shit. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like actual well thought out rational thought. And things that are thought about in an objective, practical way, And the ability to navigate those spaces, I think, actually insulates the population from being controlled by the government. Whereas we have this situation where truth, facts are not so. And I get that there's opinion and there's perspective and so forth, but there are some things that are just objectively so.
I mean that's the value of. I'm not a big proponent of college, and let me back that. I'm not saying people shouldn't go to college. I think the way it's currently structured is a bit of a fucking capitalist scam, to be honest with you. Yeah. Even though we claim most of them
everything in life too, though.
But yeah, for sure, in America at least. But what I will say is, my two children that are old enough to go to college. So it's not like I'm anti-college. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. But whenever I talk to one of my children or anyone else who is interested in should I go to college? Should I not? I say, and usually it's about, well, I don't really know what I want to be, right? I'm not sure what I even want to go for. I said, the reason to go to college, the reason to pay attention in high school, the reason to do any kind of educational pursuit, even if it's just reading books on your own or whatever, is to learn how to think for yourself and to learn how to find truth, find fact, find, meaningful information and data. It's not, in my opinion, it's not to, learn to trade stocks or learn to
become a cog in the corporate machine, right?
Yeah, obviously there's some jobs you have to have specific training for. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't do that.
That's K through 12. That's them molding you into a worker,
Right, but I feel like so many people don't think for themselves at all. You don't even have a desire to.
Because they don't want you to.
No.
So I was actually thinking about this when you were talking, Spencer, about who do you normally go to for the subject matter that you want an opinion on, I saw this post by some CEO on LinkedIn where they were an employee asked me what I thought about the vaccine. And what I told the employee was, why do you care what I think about the vaccine? I'm not a medical expert. If you want to know if you should take the vaccine, go talk to your doctor. Go talk to the people in your life that know your circumstances and who have the expertise in knowing what you should do. That is the reason why we have doctors, because you go to them for medical advice and medical help. So if you're thinking about if you should have the vaccine, or you're wondering if you should, go talk to your doctor. Don't trust Joe Rogan. Are you fucking kidding me? The dude doesn't know what he's talking about. Another thing that just that you're reminding me of, Kevin, was people they really do not. They will always be oh yeah, I was doing some research and blah 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 blah, and it's totally just oh yeah, some dude on a podcast said this. That was my research. An example of this was there was a what was it? There was a study done in Israel about the effectiveness of your immune system from natural antibodies versus the vaccine antibodies. And a whole lot of conservatives jumped on the train of this study showed that natural immunity is more effective against fighting COVID than the vaccine.
If you live.
But no, that's the point. But if you actually go and read the abstract of the study, so you don't even need to read the study. Go and actually read the abstract. It's 2 paragraphs. It gives you a summary of what the study says. And the study very specifically said, if you have the natural antibodies as well as the vaccine antibodies, it is far more effective than anything else. And then also the difference between the natural antibodies and the vaccine antibody effectiveness was marginal. So it was all these conservatives are using the study for propaganda when nobody reads it.
My favorite thing nowadays, I have I don't want to name names, but I I've got some conservative friends that are people of color, shall we say. Anyhow, I get a lot of conspiracy shit from them. They'll get like a news clipping or some like tiny portion of the bigger picture and present that as fact. So one of my favorite things to do now is like literally you can take 3-5 minutes. You can Google, you can use Yahoo, you can use DuckDuckGo, whatever the fuck you want to use. And you can easily find the truth. Like, I don't know if we're just like lazy and people are just accepting things as they are, but it's like we're living in a Twilight Zone. I just don't get it.
I think it's they put implicit trust in certain people or groups, and then they're lazy, really, what it comes down to. When they want to do their own research and they like listen to a podcast or they like watch a YouTube video because they don't want to sit down and read, or search for the correct information, or they just search for information that supports their own biases.
I mean, sometimes it is hard to kind of tell what's true, right?
True.
Sure.
So much of life is relative. As we've talked about before, we were all in a cult essentially before. And sometimes it's hard to see reality when you're in a thing. For those
that's all you've known.
For those who like to geek out on this stuff, you can read Plato's Allegory of the Cave or even watch The Matrix. But these ideas of like there being a reality that is separate from your own, or perhaps even a better way to put it is, you got blinders on. Your paradigm is so small. It's important to kind of break that and not just go with things. And even with what Will said about the study and conservatives taking this one part of it and running with it, I'm at least grateful to see that they are acknowledging that the pathogen is real. Because there are people who, even, we talked about the hospitals and putting beds in the hallway. There are people on their deathbeds that are like, no, it's not COVID. It's not.
Or even...
Seriously.
I have people I know in my life who, and I want to be careful here because I want to be sensitive, but who've had deaths and or close to deaths with COVID, who didn't get vaccinated and were either died or were in the hospital for weeks on end in the ICU. And they admit even that they had COVID, but they still somehow think or say that people shouldn't get vaccinated. The body's immune system should do it. And I don't understand the thinking. And to your point, Spencer, like a lot of anti-vaxxers will point to, well, I read this one doctor said that the vaccine's dangerous, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? There's assholes in every fucking profession and industry. We all know someone in our own profession, us and any of our listeners, who you're like, you've been in this industry for 20 years and you're this clueless. How the hell did you stay in this industry?
You bring up go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's those blinders, right? Like, just like I worked at BYU. I worked at BYU for a number of years. I went to BYU. And there's a lot of very smart, very well-educated people who in certain arenas and about certain things are just very much stuck in that cave and are afraid to go around the corner to see the light of what reality is. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's all good. I was going to say, you bring up an interesting point, and even as I'm hearing you talk about BYU or educational institutions, you have, there's faith and there's belief, but there's also fact. And how do you balance those things? Oftentimes they can be at odds, but it's almost as if people just have lost their minds. It's so weird. I've never experienced anything like this before in my life.
I almost wonder if is it that information's too easy to get now? As weird as that sounds, like that there's a glut of information. When I was sick, I couldn't watch TV or movies because I was so sick and in so much pain all the time that like I couldn't focus. So I watched Friends because it's on like 8 channels at any given time during the day. So I just had it on for kind of background noise and whatnot. But where was I going with that? Oh, there was an episode where Joey, a character in Friends, encyclopedia salesman came to the door. And it's actually, I can't remember who it is. Who's the tall guy from Penn and Teller? It's the tall guy, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
That's the guy who played the part in Friends. But it cracked me up because I was like, a fucking encyclopedia salesman. I remember those guys from when I was a kid, but like, I don't think there's door-to-door encyclopedia sales.
Do people have encyclopedias anymore?
I don't think so. But like I remember as a kid, like we had a set of encyclopedias at home, and that's how I learned about. That's how I taught myself to play chess. That's how I like learned about all kinds of things. That's how I learned about volcanoes when Mount St. Helens blew up in my front yard, basically when I was an 8-year-old.
Or the New York Public Library desk reference. Did you guys have one of those?
No.
Yeah,
I was obsessed
exactly.
with that when I was a kid.
And the thing is, obviously,
Will is like, what the fuck are y'all talking about?
Textbooks, encyclopedias, whatever, can be skewed, and they are skewed a lot of the time. But I almost feel like there's more opportunities now for people's opinions to get intertwined with information.
We are information saturated. Like I saw this funny TikTok reels, whatever, of this guy ranting about how you can essentially find fact information to support whatever position you want. Yeah. You come up with some crazy fucking idea that, I don't know, deer eat birds, for example. That's actually true. But you can support that information, right? Because there's so much out there to support your position. It's like the people who are like, oh yeah, take the horse dewormer. It's totally cool. And then they, push that. And yes, right, there's some gray area there. It is used for humans. There's a human version of it, but people don't understand that. And so they go buy the wrong thing and then causes problems. And there was a study conducted on cells in vitro with COVID that showed that ivermectin did reduce the ability of the pathogen to reproduce. Right. Cool. Very, very, very tiny detail. And then they take that and they run with it because they have all these sources. They have all these people. They have all these YouTube videos, podcasts, whatever, people saying, yes, this works. And of course, it feels good because, I have things supporting my point of view, but it doesn't mean that it's right.
Yeah,
it's true. And I have an embarrassing admission to make with COVID, right? And Kevin can back this up because there was like this French medical study that showed that smokers didn't get COVID in France, and everybody fucking smoked.
This was pretty early. Right? This was
way early in COVID, and everybody was like, and this was the time where they're like, oh, nobody needs a mask. This is only for the doctors. Don't wear masks. Leave them for the doctors. And so I literally have a closet full of nicotine patches that because they're like, nicotine is the thing. It will save everyone. So not a closet full, but I have
a lot
of nicotine patches. So if you want to get fucking hyper and wild or whatever, I got the shit, right?
Party at Belinda's. That sounds like the plot to some awesome sci-fi movie. It's like, what would the side effect be of everyone on the planet smoking, even kids?
No, I have a friend and she's a nurse, and she said they one time dared somebody else on the staff to wear 3 nicotine patches through their shift. And the person was puking, they were just vomiting. They're sick. So
there is such thing as too much nicotine.
That's definitely.
Oh, tell me more. Just kidding.
Well, so I was thinking as you guys were talking about this is I think the biggest problem with all of this is people will equate influencer status with credibility.
Intelligence, yeah.
That's the reason why earlier I said Joe Rogan. People will listen to Joe Rogan. Why? That dude, even on his show, admits he's a fucking dumbass. He will literally be like, guys, don't take my advice on this. I'm just a fucking dumbass. And people will literally ignore that part and then take what he says next as like set in stone. This is fact. Stop trusting influencers and popular people. Stop it. Like
Rachel Parcell cannot tell you whether or not to take the vaccine.
In fact, this kind of goes back to like some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. Stop trusting the news. Like, yeah, the news is a data point. That doesn't mean it's fact. Like if okay, you hear something on the news, go look it up if you're actually curious about it. Don't just think it's fact.
Yeah.
Like
this is where I love John Oliver, right?
Like even like the people that I listen to for my news, I don't trust them. Are you kidding me? It's all propaganda. Everybody has an agenda. Everybody has their own biases. Stop listening to people and trusting everything that they say. Like actually go and do a little research, but don't do it and go look up at other people.
But at the same time, Will, how can I out-research a doctor who, has 15, 20 years of experience? I don't know how to do that.
Right.
You don't, but I would assume that there are other doctors who would probably have like a response to that doctor.
Now,
like kind of find
peer reviewed, right?
If you're not lazy again and you know where to look, you can find these studies. I've looked at some of them before. It's also been interesting interacting with friends. Kevin at the beginning mentioned an interaction online, on the topic of COVID and truth and what's real and personal experience and selfishness and all that. But if I recall, this person referenced a minority of doctors, and I don't mean, in an ethics sense or cultural sense, but a minority quorum or cohort of doctors that had a certain opinion about COVID. Cool. There's always going to be dissent, but it's the same thing with climate change or other issues where people take this very minor, almost within the margin of error minority in any statistical sense, and they run with it. And they're like, well, 2 doctors over in Australia said this, so let's derail the whole pandemic because they believe this. It's like, no, this doesn't make sense. I'm so frustrated.
True.
Yeah, and then even that is like you all are also not an expert in it. Like I remember, I'm glad you brought up climate change because I remember there was a climate scientist who did have a dissenting opinion about some of the climate models. And a lot of the other climate scientists were like, okay, well, like you're an outcast now, like you're just like a climate denier, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. And so this guy got like a reputation of being a climate change denier. Well, it turns out that if you factored in the stuff into his, like if you use the studies or the whatever, I'm not a climate expert. If the stuff that he was doing, if you factored it into the current climate models, they actually had like a huge hole of knowledge that was missing. And that was the reason why there was a dissenting opinion. And so even him, who was like labeled a climate change denier, he actually contributed to like the wealth of knowledge that proved that humans cause climate change and it's going to fuck up our planet. So it's like, even if like you pulled up that guy's study and you're like, see, this proves that climate change isn't real. You got to look it up because like a decade later, they found out that no, like, yeah, the original research that he did was true. And they found out that the climate's a lot worse than we ever anticipated. It's like stuff like that. People need to stop trusting other people.
Or like, I guess it's the politicizing of scientific evidence, right?
Sure. Yeah,
I feel like that started with climate science and then it's like kind of become a partisan issue ever since, right? Like in big arenas, right? So like COVID, climate change, but I mean, it's not politics. It's just science.
So I have a question. We're essentially talking about truth, right? We're talking about like, how do you know what's real? How do you know the right path forward when it comes to COVID, when it comes to anything about your health? Like I said, I've been dealing with health issues, so I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Like, and you get online and you start reading things about kidney stones. Well, there's all kinds of ideas about how to fix it, how to prevent it, whatever. Like it was really easy when I was Mormon to wrap my head around. Well, it's fine. I just pray to God, and I do a little bit of work. I do a little bit of research, and then I go to God with what I think is right. And then this burning in my bosom, this heartburn, this holy heartburn, if you will, comes to me and tells me that I'm either right or I'm wrong. But without that, like, and all the things we've talked about, whether it be how politicized everything is, how many different versions of quote unquote truth that comes from data, even from experts, there is. How the fuck do we figure this shit out? Like, honestly, like what? What are we supposed to do?
I teach a class about this stuff, but or lead lectures, but man, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go, Kevin?
Let's go.
I'm drunk, so there
is no objective from my perspective. Research, things I've read, watched, studied. There's no objective reality or truth.
Sure.
Everything. I've never seen myself outside my body. I have a concept of myself. I can see what this computer screen camera is telling me, but I've never seen myself. Am I fucking real? I don't know. You see something and you see me a certain way. I don't look necessarily the way you see me. So even that in principle is an example of relativity in all aspects of life. If you want to get really far down the rabbit hole,
you're making me feel high, Spencer.
Quantum field theory, right? That every instant, every moment, every fucking infinitesimally small division of time is its own reality.
Yeah.
Fucking blows your mind.
Like in a multiverse.
But this is crossing each other.
These are theories that have been mathematically proven, right? So
okay, but also mathematics.
Okay. What the fuck is math? What the fuck is math?
No, but that can be your same point.
Now, if you're listening to this, you're probably like,
in a number theory, they have a proof that shows that mathematics cannot be objectively true because it is not a complete system. You cannot represent the natural world with numbers. You can get really close approximations. That's if you want to get down to like the quantum level, I guess is what I'm,
Let's get down to the quantum level, boys.
I don't want to lose everyone here. I don't want to lose everyone here. Will and I are on a wavelength, it seems. But yeah, Kevin, I mean, to get back to your point, how do we know what's real and what's true? We don't. Right. And science and conservatives, religious people like to shit on science and say, well, science has got it wrong. And it's like, science is not about being right, absolutely, in an absolute sense. It's about being less wrong.
No. Yep.
And progressively so, right? And as much as there's this idea of the infinite, certainly it's an asymptotic approach to getting a bit closer to the truth. We may never get to some singularity, right? Literally or figuratively, where everything's explained. We may never get there, but we can get a little bit closer. Just like math is an approximation, and math gets better and more accurate, right? We started with Newton's laws of motion, right? And we had Einstein's theory of relativity and then special relativity. Now we have quantum theory, and we're getting closer and closer to something, some explanation of reality, but we don't know. We're just trying to be a little less wrong, okay? And I think people forget that. Science is not about saying this is how it is. But in the case of climate change, we can look at trends, we can look at data, and we can say, it seems as though there is a trend toward this eventuality. In the pandemic, people shit on science the whole time because there were projections, there were models that modeled an absolute worst case fucking nightmare that I'm glad never came true. I was like, oh shit, 6 million people in the US are going to die. This is when rates of death were a bit higher. Numbers were skewed because we didn't it's like not enough people. Yeah. Well, not enough people had the virus to essentially create a large enough data set, as fucked up as that is, because we have death as a result or long-term side effects, right? But now we have a robust data set, and we can say, yes, here's a more accurate model and understanding of this virus. But the people who are resistant to reality, right? They want you to say or believe that science says, this is how it is. and we know everything. And it's like, no, scientists aren't saying that. Right. And there's no leeway given. There's no, it's weird.
My favorite is when science changes, like new data is presented and they change their mind. And then people are like, see, scientists, they were wrong the whole entire time. Like, they don't know anything.
You're like, no, they were right, because when the data changed, they changed their mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
what do you want them to do? Keep saying the wrong thing?
Just lie about it? Like
the inflexibility of not all religious people. I've got to caveat this. I don't want to offend everyone, but there's a certain inflexibility in thinking because, so much hinges on whatever story or narrative you've formed that there's no flexibility to say, oh, you know what, we were wrong. This is where we're going. Like, look at how long it takes or took the Mormon church to be like, okay, black people, you're cool. You get the super wizard magic powers too. Look how long that took, right? Even as society had moved on and progressed, the inflexibility, because in being flexible, you undermine your position in an absolute, when you position yourself as the absolute authority of truth, and the arbiter of truth, I should say, it undermines your position to be flexible, right? Well, science doesn't give a fuck. Science is like, no, we just want to be less wrong. So going back to your question, Kevin, I just love this topic because the older I get, the more I realize, even growing up, I was told that there are objective rights and wrongs and truths. It's like, no, there's not. There
aren't absolutes.
There is not.
Yeah.
We value things universally. We value life, and it's not even universal because some people don't value life. You can't say that that's objectively true, that life is inherently valuable. No, because someone's going to think differently, and that's their truth, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that's why I say, how far do you want to get down the rabbit hole? Because everything's fucking relative.
All I know is I'm going to start a band, and it's going to be called Super Wizard Magic Powers.
No.
For sure.
It's going to be the best band
I have
ever.
no musical talent, but I will start that band. Second of all of y'all need to watch a show on HBO called, and if you need a login, let me know. Okay. I won't give it to all the listeners, but listeners, if you comment, maybe.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
HBO, don't sue me. I'm just kidding. I'm totally joking. But what's that show called, Belinda?
The Righteous Gemstones.
The Righteous Gemstones. There's only one season, and allegedly there's going to be more.
Yeah.
So far, allegedly there's going to be more. John Goodman's in it. He plays the patriarch to a mega church family.
Yeah.
Who has like millions, maybe even billions of dollars from leading this mega church. It actually touches on several of these things, I think, in some ways, like what's truth and what is truth altered to feed the greed of human beings. And I think that's a lot of what we see, whether we're talking religion, whether we're talking news stations, whether we're talking politics, even for the most part. It's all about greed, feeding people, taking the data and using it to feed whatever narrative is going to make them more money. So really, when it all comes down to it, I often look, and this is for sure not a foolproof method. Sorry, the booze is getting to me. I'm almost done with the doubles. So.
Oh God.
Yeah, you can tell you and Belinda that's it.
I'm feeling it for sure.
I often look to the sources that are, and again, so not foolproof, but the ones that are more, what's the word? Non money-making sources of information.
True. Who funded the study?
Nonprofit.
Yeah.
Nonprofit.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
that's not foolproof.
Right.
Yeah.
When Marlboro funds the story. I can't talk because I'm drunk. But when, like back in the 50s when they said cigarettes help you smoke all the cigarettes, right? Like back in the 50s, because like Big Tobacco was funding all the studies, not Big Casket, but maybe them too. I don't know.
Probably Big Casket as well.
I mean, it
Fucking
works.
Big
It
Casket.
works.
What would the CEO of Big Casket? Oh no, you did describe the tall, lanky motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
Only
Lurch.
Henry Kissinger.
Lurch
Like
type
dark
character.
circles around his eyes.
He's
Yeah.
somebody from like what was that show on late night radio that I used to
Oh,
listen
Art
to?
Bell.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
my
I
God,
love
Art Bell.
I love Art Bell. I miss. Well, yeah, he passed away. I
I know
miss that
he's
show.
dead.
Coast
But
to
do you remember
Coast
that?
AM.
Coast to Coast AM.
Coast to Coast.
Shadow
Oh God,
people.
the shadow
He's a
people.
The
shadow-
shadow people.
Oh my God,
That
He's a
scared
fucking
the
shadow
shit
person.
out
That's
of me.
good. I couldn't sleep for months. I used to listen to Art Bell all
I'm
night.
He's like, if streetlights dim when you drive past them, you're
Shadow
a star
people.
person. And I'm like, oh fuck, I'm half alien now. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
seriously. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about that sometime, Belinda, because I used to listen to him like religiously.
I mean, you know, Will and I are down for an episode.
Oh,
talking
yeah.
Oh
about
my God.
You know,
We'll
any of
have
that
to-
shit.
We'll have to dig up some classic Art Bell episodes and give to these guys to listen to.
That's
like,
true.
Seriously.
like the interview with the devil and like stuff like that. Like, and they can listen to it and
Oh my
learn for
God.
themselves.
Oh my
there you
God.
go.
Yeah, I think
I think it's time
I
to
think
put
you're-
you to bed, Kevin.
That's right.
I think it's time for me to hang it up. But no, I think you're right. Like the reality of finding truth is, first of all, somewhat a personal thing, and that truth a myth. That's maybe the topic for another show.
Yeah,
Is the ability to like quantify something as fact and truth even a possibility? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, we can
So you
discuss
guys-
that one.
So you guys know me. This is the last thing I'll say is I'm a big nihilist, and there is no such thing as truth. Nothing matters. Yeah.
No, I had my first
I'm just looking
nihilistic
at that.
thought in a while today. I was driving
Oh,
I was driving to the eye doctor, and I was just watching the cars drive by, and I was like, none of this fucking matters.
Yeah, it's all
And
fake.
it just like hit me. I was like, none of this
Yep.
fucking matters. Not in a self-destructive way or anything. Just like
Okay.
just accepting that in this moment, none of this fucking matters.
No, that
we,
like
we
are.
pretend.
In every moment.
We're like a flower in bloom that decays over time, right? We're just like any other living creature on the earth, and we are flourishing
just-
now and decaying over time. Like
We just
we're
happen to have written and spoken language, and
right. We're walking hamburger friends.
on this teeny tiny planet going around this relatively small star in a galaxy and universe of hundreds of billions of other planets.
the
We're
odds.
just a cell in
Nothing
someone's
matters.
body living another reality. Like my theory.
I have something to say about this to all of you.
God.
Oh god, here we
Some
go.
of you might recognize that line, but
Mhm.
not to go back to my dick problems, but I will say, I think part of our problem is we're too comfortable in life. So what I mean by that is when I was when I say I was sick, it doesn't even do it justice. Like Belinda came over and helped me a lot because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. So made some meals and like all the nice things. And I appreciate that so much. But like literally everything mattered then because I was feeling the reality that all of it might. Now, I didn't think I was going to die, but like I was in so much pain that I started to recognize like people who deal with chronic pain, people who are on their deathbed, things like that. That's when things matter. And I think some of what we've talked about, some of the lazy, we've used the word laziness, we've used the word doesn't matter, I think a lot of it is we live a very comfortable existence in this. Yeah, we're walking hamburger, and yeah, we're on a planet that probably won't be able to support certain types of life in the near future. But the reality is right now we live a really fucking comfortable existence. And I think we should save that for another time, probably because I am very drunk. But I think there is more to. Well, I think I tend to agree with what all you are saying about nihilism and it doesn't matter and all of those things. I think we built an existence that makes the reality of things not mattering to us even more in the forefront and allows us to be comfortable not really caring about what happens or how we feel or how other people's feel.
So much to talk about. So much to dive in.
We should have an entire episode on this.
A whole philosophical episode.
Yeah,
and I'm here for it.
We should do this more often.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes to mind. I'm like, well, yeah, because we don't have to worry about so much shit. Now we can focus on all this other stuff that other people in the world.
We should cut this off because this will be a great episode to have.
Okay.
Mental note.
But
it's good to be back though.
Yeah, we're gonna try and come back even more often. We took a little break for the summer.
We're coming more often.
Keep on coming, friends. Have you come today?
Not yet. But...
Oh, it was a rhetorical question, my friend.
Better get on that, Kevin.
Not yet.
Now that I think about it.
We should end the episode.
We probably should.
Love you all. This has been so good. Follow us on all the things.
Twitter at ThirstPod, Instagram, Thirst Impressions Podcast, Facebook, right? Or is it Thirst Impressions?
I think we're on Facebook.
Forget. You know what? Fuck that shit. All the details will be in the episode information.
There you
Just
go.
follow us there.
There you go.
Subscribe!
We don't need to support Mark Zuckerberg.
No,
oh,
fuck
God.
that dude.
Yeah. Fuck Mark.
All right, we love you all. Tell your friends about us. We promise we're going to get back into the groove again.
We're kicking the rust off.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's so many good topics, though, but we'll be back.
All right.
Till next time, friends. Remember,
Peace.
come today. Come face.
Those NyQuil are hitting me really hard.
We've had intricate discussions about bowel movements recently. It's okay.
You know what fucking sucks? Cum in your eye.
Am I the only person who hasn't had cum in their eye? Jesus Christ.